intelligence. So am I turning over to Paula or to Emma?
Yes, I'm
Paula,
starting.
off you
Thanks
go
very
then.
much. Great. And good morning, everyone. And thanks so much for joining today. And also to Nala for giving us the opportunity to share our project with you. And so before I begin telling the story of how the project came about and how we're going to conduct it, I thought I might like to get you to consider how often have you used AI already today? So maybe you could do a quick show of hands there to see how often you think you've used it or if you've used it already today. Oh, lots of hands up there. So when we do this poll with our older participants in various settings, sometimes they're not aware that they actually use these AI technologies in their products and services almost unknowingly. And so I guess the project is about having that discussion about how these products and services are embedded in our or how AI is embedded, artificial intelligence embedded in our products and services, and how equitable and accessible is their use, and what type of products and services do they seek to change, and how it's being used by them. And so, just as a introduction to the project, AI is all around us, as I said, in our products and services, whether we notice it or not. And in typical applications where we show its use for everyday products and services is we ask if participants have used Google Maps to get to the location they're at. Not exactly relevant today, but generally in our in-person events, that's something that might be used by them. Or if we've used payment, if we've used our phone for making payments, artificial intelligence technologies is behind that, or in our access of YouTube or Netflix, and in the recommendation systems that sit behind those. So when we look at something that we might be recommended other similar material to view, and when we're accessing weather forecast update information, or indeed ChatGPT, as we've heard from Scott and showed us how to use that tool. AI technologies are all around us, and even in things like predictive text that we're used to using on our mobile phones or on our emails. AI technologies behind all of those products and services that we've really become almost well, as part of our everyday existence nowadays, and that we may not even be fully aware that artificial intelligence is behind lots of those. So Scott already mentioned the principles of universal design for all, and I'd like to say at the start that this project, Age-Friendly AI, is about inclusive and accessible artificial intelligence for all. So as it's becoming increasingly integrated into daily life, making AI literacy a critical skill for everyone, especially adult learning, who may be at risk of digital exclusion, is of paramount importance to us. So how the project came about is I'm involved with colleagues in TU Dublin and the Adapt Research Centre in DCU and across other universities in Dublin, who volunteer at a number of public events every year to help engage the general public with technologies. And we generally bring along a set of demonstration materials to showcase what our students have been working on throughout the year and what we as researchers are also working on. And at the Dublin Maker event in 2023, ChatGPT had just been launched, and there was a lot of publicity around it, as there still is. And so one of our students had worked on this mask here, Bob, we call it. So it's basically a voice interface into ChatGPT. So instead of having to type your question, as Scott showed us with his demo, you can just talk to it instead, and it's driven at the back end by ChatGPT, as I say. So we thought it would be a fun and engaging way to interact with ChatGPT for the audience. And indeed, it did get plenty of publicity. Kids were very eager to give it a go, asking it all kinds of questions, fascinated by the mask's conversational abilities. And asking it all sorts of interesting questions. But what stood out to me the most as I stood back from the demonstration was the reactions from the adults that were accompanying the children at the event. And we had a lot of parents and grandparents, and they were very keen for their children and grandkids to engage with Bob and to give it a go. But they were really quite reluctant themselves to have a go at it. And when I questioned them further and probed this a little bit, they cited really a fear of breaking it, a lack of confidence in knowing what questions to ask it, or being concerned about how their questions might be used for other purposes, where those questions might end up. So reflecting on it after the event, the reluctance really struck a chord. And to me, it highlighted, I suppose, a significant generational gap, not just in the level of engagement with this new technology, but also the fact that older adults in particular lacked a confidence and a familiarity to try it out and give it a go. I mean, it was new technology to all of us. So, there was I couldn't see any reason or equitable reason that they should be reluctant to engage with us. So I felt that there was an opportunity being missed here, and that kind of realization stayed with me through the next few public engagement activities that we were involved in. So in early 2024, we were invited along to an age action group, U3A, they're called the University of Third Age, and they asked us to do an introductory talk on artificial intelligence in their Sutton Baldoyle library. And roped in some of my willing colleagues in the Adapt Centre in DCU, and together we designed some pre and post surveys to really capture if what we had noticed at the Dublin Maker and other similar events was in fact a reality. So the results were really illuminating, and we built on them and conducted the survey amongst 150 older adults across a number of U3A groups and also with the Louth County Council. And we found out that there is a strong interest in learning about AI, but there's a clear need as well for inclusive, practical learning experiences for using and trying out these technologies and being able to engage confidently with them. So just to give you a summary or a highlight of some of the survey results in our pre-survey events, many participants weren't aware of how AI was already embedded in their daily lives, much as I showed the products and services that we've become accustomed to using all the time as we go about our daily lives, from predictive texting and TV recommendations that I mentioned earlier, but also in chatbots and such like technologies. So here we can see that definitely in the survey results that we have, that many were unsure or didn't know that they were using artificial intelligence already, and also that they had concerns and reservations about these products and services, particularly in the area of replacing human-led services with chatbots, for example, and of keen interests were particularly applications revolving around banking, health and communications. And then after the workshop, we did notice a noticeable shift in the survey responses. So we were delighted to see that participants recognise the need for greater public awareness of AI, including understanding how and where it's used in products and services, and indeed in policies that affect them, and what the ethical issues are around their use. And then we were particularly heartened to see that they'd recommend the workshop to others, and that it did highlight the importance of accessible training to help demystify the technologies, but also the terminology and the concepts, so that it'd be more inclusive and to make them a little less ominous and vague, I guess. So the person there that just to say who said no, they wouldn't recommend it to somebody else, said because their friend was already at the workshop. So that was good. So recognising this, that the research community really needed to engage with the topic, we spent the next few months working on a proposal for national funding to work on these issues that had come up in the survey responses. And the momentum for this led us to successfully apply for funding through the Research Ireland Discover branch to launch the initiative to run over the next 2 years, 25 and 26, in a number of activities. So the large list that we saw here at the first slide are all the partners and the sponsors that have come behind us, and we have several have joined since. So with the enthusiastic and generous support of these partners, we got the green light just at Christmas to launch the event. And through this initiative, we've committed to an ambitious 2-year plan to bring together a number of participant groupings. So we have community groups of older adults, industry partners, such as Workday that are mentioned there, Senior Times and so on, and then policymakers advising governments on policies around the implementation of AI and its equitable and ethical use, and researchers and academics who are looking at future directions AI might take. And we want and hope that these participants will all work together with older adults to listen, understand, and act on their hopes, concerns, and expectations around the inclusive use of AI. So at our launch event in March, we kicked off with a pre-launch workshop of stakeholders. So we had over 50 older adults and members of our stakeholder groups. And I'm going to show a quick clip of the video launch and see if you can spot who our special guest is. So this is just about a minute long. Hopefully it'll play out. So I might just turn down the sound there. I hope you can all hear it okay, or hear me okay over it rather. So we did a pre-evaluation workshop where we worked with the participants to see what they would expect from such an initiative and how we might go about evaluating its success or otherwise. So
Paula, it's very hard to hear you.
Paula, is there anything you can do with the sound?
The clip there at the end showed our special guest, Frances Brennan, who really add to the occasion. And just to bring it full circle from what Scott mentioned, when I approached Frances to do the launch for us, he said he didn't know anything about AI, but he does embrace lifelong learning. And then when he gave the keynote speech at the actual launch event, he alluded to the fact that he did know about AI from a very young age, because he used to go down to his uncle's farm every year, and there was great excitement during the summer when the AI man came around. So I thought that was a very appropriate and funny anecdote that he shared with the audience at the time. So then the activities that we did at the workshop explored a number of questions in order to define our project outcome, and participants at this expressed a strong desire for increasing literacy on AI through things like user-friendly interfaces, using plain English, using clear and simple instructions, having better voice input interfaces, having uncluttered interfaces as well. And additionally, they highlighted inclusion, affordability and accuracy of data and fact checking to support them. So in the first year, in 2025, we are in the process of hosting our 8 regional public dialogue workshops across Ireland, collaborating closely with our community group partners. And what we want to do here is to listen and capture their perspectives on AI through the lived experiences they have, and to provide safe and collaborative spaces for them to engage in the conversation around artificial intelligence and how they're being used, empowering them with this knowledge to share their hopes and concerns and ideas with the other key stakeholder groups. And based on this, then we hope to together co-create, and picked up on the previous presenters' use of that methodology as well. So that's a nice follow on there. So we're going to create AI literacy training content with and for this demographic. And my colleague Emma will talk about that process in a little bit more detail now when I hand over to her. And in the second year then, 2026, with that literacy training content, we're going to hit the road with the National Roadshow, bringing interactive learning experiences to the communities in their community settings. So we're hoping to link up with the library network and possibly with the NALA network, etc., to have some hands-on sessions, providing opportunities for older adults and the general public to engage with AI technologies through demos, short explainer videos, or whatever it is that we co-create together that will best showcase the technologies and the pros and cons associated with it. Very importantly, we will ensure that there's a friendly support available so they'll feel empowered in this rapidly evolving digital landscape that's affecting us all. And we have a very ambitious plan to, you'll see there, target over 60,000 adults at various stages, ranging from deep engagement through our co-design and co-create phases, and through our literacy training phase, to lighter touch approach engagements through postcard campaigns that we're running, and also presence at the over 50 or shows like the over 50s show, Science Week, and so on. So festivals and events that are going on around the country. So now I'm going to hand over to Dr. Emma Clarke from the DCU Adapt Centre to take us through how we're going to go about engaging this audience. So Emma, over to you.
Thanks. Paula, do you mind if I share my screen? Oh, yeah.
Ladies, are you planning on sleeping at all over the next 2 years? It's a huge, I mean, it's fantastic to hear, but hugely ambitious project.
We did ask ourselves that.
Yeah.
Good question. Yeah. Yeah, we're wondering if we might have bitten off more than we can chew, but
it's great to hear, because I think there's a lot of, I think you mentioned it, Paula, sorry to interrupt, it's just really exciting because I think it kind of aligns with a lot of work we're doing, and you mentioned about libraries, there's a lot going on in this space, so we can have that kind of conversation offline in terms of how we kind of mutually connect to what I kind of say, make the seemingly impossible possible in a relatively short space of time.
Yeah, we'd be absolutely delighted to, because yeah, I think it's really it's a collaboration, and you know, where, like Paula showed, the kind of the list of partners that are already involved, but that's not a closed process, and we're really open to looking at ways to collaborate with all the great work that's already happening out there in the space. So yeah, we'd love to have a chat about it. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're planning to do this, you know, like the phases that we're in currently, I suppose, and you know, a bit around the kind of the practical side of it. So just to give a little bit of a background. I'm from the research. I'm based in the Research Ireland Adapt Centre at DCU, but which is also based in 8 different colleges and universities around the country. And I'm on the Education and Public Engagement team. And Adapt is a very multidisciplinary centre. So it's a centre that focuses on AI technology, but really looking at the kind of the human angle, or the human piece around AI technology. And in order to do that, there's computer scientists working within the centre, but then there's also a huge range of you know, people from sociology background, also ethicists, journalists, legal experts, all kind of working together on kind of looking at this kind of ethical angle, or you know, looking at a more ethical approach to AI. And Discuss AI is one of our main public engagement programs, and it's a national conversation where we're aiming to kind of create multi-way dialogue between the researchers in the centre, also with citizens, policymakers, and industry, and it's all around these kind of ethical and societal impacts of AI. So just to kind of give kind of the background, so age-friendly AI fits into the Discuss AI program. So we're currently in a phase of co-creation, as Paula mentioned, and we are using a method called citizens think-ins to kind of explore these topics with members of the public and other stakeholders. And think-ins are public discussion forums that we've been running in ADAPT for the past number of years to explore the different research areas that we're working on. And think-ins are the themes focus typically on AI and privacy and ethics, and they're designed, so they have a number of aims, so to foster discussion and dialogue around these technologies, and to kind of facilitate an informed debate on the role of these technologies in our lives. And through these, we aim to make citizens and people feel more engaged with and have their say on these issues. But we also are aiming to ensure that the researchers are more familiar with the public views on their work. And these have been funded along the way by Science Foundation Ireland, now currently Research Ireland. So just the general format of these events is that they start with an introductory presentation, or sometimes a short panel discussion on a particular theme that's being discussed in the workshop. So we ran one of these actually just on Monday in Thurles, in collaboration with Mary Immaculate College there, and we're exploring particularly the theme of age-friendly AI and what that means to people. So what happens is somebody gives an introductory presentation, and then we break into small group scenario discussions, which is usually 5 or 6 participants, and these are facilitated discussions. So there's a facilitator and then a note taker, a scribe, who's also at the table. So the discussions take place for about 45 minutes before coming back to the main group and doing a report back on what was discussed. Then just to say, the small groups discuss scenarios. So we're currently in a co-creation phase. So we're going to be developing scenarios based on the co-creation. And in the later phase, later this year, we'll have particular discussion scenarios. So following the report back to the group, then there's an opportunity for a kind of a whole group reflection and deliberation before breaking up for lunch and kind of continuing the discussions over lunch more informally. So who participates in these? So we launched Citizens Think-ins as an initiative in 2019. And since then, we've engaged over 700 citizens or people in the workshops. And over 150 researchers have been involved in some way along the way. Over this time, we've also worked with more than 30 different community partners, and we've developed scenarios based on around 20 different topics, more than 20 different topics, all relating to AI. So just the process of, so those are the kind of the public facing events, I suppose, but we take a co-creation approach at every stage of the project. So we use co-creation to address the priorities for deliberation, so that it's not researchers saying, I want to talk about this, but that it's, kind of coming from the the audiences, the topics, you know, come from there. Also, yeah, and to co-select, sorry. So the priorities, and then that's also used to co-select the topics for discussion, and then also to co-develop the content. So what we're learning at the co-creation phase will be developing into content for future thinkings. And we're also taking an approach to co-evaluate the project. So when Paula showed the video from the launch, I think because we couldn't, well, I found it kind of tricky to hear some of what Paula was saying, but one of the people in the video is from our external evaluation partner called Sticky Dot, and they take a very novel approach to co-evaluation where the kind of the how to measure the success or the impact of the project is defined at the beginning of the process with the target audience. So that was the process that happened in the pre-workshop launch that you saw in that video. So I also have a short video, but I might just jump out of my my slides for a second because I haven't been able to get this video to play for some reason. So if you just bear with me for a second, I'll jump out to YouTube and play. It's a short 2.5-minute video from an event that we ran in Kerry back in 2023, and kind of some of the findings from this event, you know, helped to shape the project as it is today. So I'll just play this if it works. Is the sound working?
Today's event is an event.
Can you hear it?
Run by the Adapt
Yes.
Research Centre, which is an SFI, Science Foundation Ireland centre. In this case, we were interested in older people's understanding of digital and the barriers to digital experiences. Many digital experiences do not seem to have been designed to make it accessible to all audiences.
This generation quite often, and in their own words, they feel like they have been abandoned when it comes to their digital journey. So it's about understanding that further, their experiences, and hopefully coming up with solutions that will empower them to learn this themselves as well, with the right supports and the right aids.
I guess a lot of you will, know this already. What is it?
I'm here because I am interested in the digital situation for my own self-confidence. I would like to know a little bit more, to use my laptop a bit more and my tablet.
What is the PAL? It's an international network of very fancy computers.
Maybe learn to be less afraid of modern technology.
Ultimately, it's about, for all of us at all ages, to think about living independently as long as we can.
I think the sound may have gone, or is it just me?
It's gone. The sound is gone.
Well, for me, I found it very beneficial because it's just kind of woke me up.
I don't know why that happened, but the captions are there, or I can move on if it's.
No, it's back. The sound came back.
I was one of the ones that was very terrified of online banking, but I think that they've helped an awful lot to allay those fears. When we were in a circle and we had a facilitator, it was really brilliant. They encouraged us, and nobody everything was valued. I thought it was excellent. I didn't know anybody at all when I came, but I'm so glad I came, and it gave me great hope as well.
So hopefully that gives a kind of a little flavour of what those events are like. So they are quite busy and chatty and noisy and things. But
hello, my name is Dr. Jimna O'Sullivan, and I'm the academic lead for the Digital Futures.
Apologies, YouTube kept playing there. Sorry. So just to say before I hand back to Paula, so we carried out evaluation of the programme last year and the year before, and that was the event that you just saw in the video was part of that programme. And the evaluation found, I've just kind of pulled out a couple of key points from the evaluation, but it found that that the format that we use showcases effective co-creation with different communities. And it kind of also demonstrated that the approach that we take means that these events kind of establish a safe space for dialogue and discussion, which is kind of really important when talking about topics like this, where, you know, there's no right or wrong answer. And, you know, like, so we have a kind of a conversation code at each event that outlines that, you know, that everybody's opinion is valued, and, you know, just kind of, you know, approaches to creating that safe space. And respondents in the evaluation described these discussions as amicable, respectful, and authentic. And just to say that by establishing this safe space, it led to participants in several of these events feeling more empowered to share and contribute their thoughts on the impact of AI in their lives. And I suppose just to say that these events nobody needs to have any background understanding of AI to come to these events. It's people can come even if they've no experience, or, you know, like Paula mentioned earlier, like people tend to come thinking that they have no experience of AI, but they leave kind of feeling that they do actually engage with it, you know, through things like Netflix, and they mightn't have had that awareness beforehand. So I'm just going to pass back, Paula. I'll keep the slides going here, but I'll pass over to you just to talk a little bit about the interactive activities, which is also part of the co-creation process that we're running at the moment. You there, Paula?
Yep, great. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So as Emma has already taken us through the type of group activities that we do, but then informally over lunch, we give a chance for the audience to interact with various demos and tools that we have that have artificial intelligence embedded in them. And what we're trying to do here is to spark some conversations around the pros and cons of these technologies that are behind the various demos, and then to inspire inspire people to think about what they might like as part of our AI literacy demonstration training packs that we're going to that we are co-designing with them and for them. So an example is this Bob that I alluded to earlier that made its debut at the Dublin Maker in 2023, and what it just provides a nice, easy, accessible interface into ChatGPT. But we also explore things with it, because we're currently working on projects with the students to do some tracking and facial recognition with the eyes. And we also have, it's 3D printed by our students, and the idea is the masks are interchangeable. So what happens if we change it into something that looks very human-like versus something that doesn't? Some people would prefer to be very aware that it's not a human. Others would like it to appear more friendly. So we have those kind of conversations around it. And then we talk about, for example, are we okay with our faces being tracked at various points when we pass these CCTV cameras, and how is that used for the good, but how also might it be used by bad players in the space? So we explore those kind of concepts through that demo, and we provide a prompt or a frame beside it to just because our experience was that people are shy to ask questions, afraid of breaking it, lacking in confidence about what questions to ask, etc. So we provide some prompts to get them started, then ask them to give it a turn, and then have the discussion informally afterwards about how they think it performed. So that's the talking mask. Emma, do you want to talk about your Art2AI?
The next one. So we also have what we call Art2AI, a museum of very modern art, where we ask people if they can spot whether an artwork was created by an artist originally or generated by AI. So we usually set it up kind of similar to the picture here, with 10 images, and usually 5 or 6 of them might be generated by AI. And typically people tend to get around, so the average score is 7 out of 10. But what this helps, so it's not about getting the right or wrong answer really, but it just it's a way for us to prompt kind of discussion around the kind of the challenges or the ethical challenges that are associated with generative AI technologies, and what this means for kind of creative endeavors, I suppose. So that's that one. And then Paula.
The ChatGPT one, then we saw that with Scott's demonstration already. So again, what type of things? A chance to try it out, see what it can do, but also we we provide a prompt that might cause an hallucination on its part. So how we have to be careful about the information that's given back and be able to curate it and navigate it. And again, we provide some ideas for prompting so that there won't be that hesitancy or lack of confidence. And generally, we find that once people get going with it, they're delighted to give it a try or whatever. And as I say, we engage in a conversation, then it allows us to engage in that conversation about its pros and cons.
Yeah, and we do a very similar one, but with using Gemini and looking at image generation. And what we have found with the image generation, or when we're talking to people, a lot of people might have tried the text-based ChatGPT to generate text, but not many people have tried image generation. So we have a similar activity, like Paula mentioned, with some sample prompts or prompts that other people have used, and then offering people a chance to try out this technology.
The voice assistance is another one that this cohort of older adults, there's quite a few have used Alexas or Ring doorbells, and we had some nice feedback at our event on Monday from a lady who was using a Nest doorbell and was facilitated in attending the event because she was able to use the technology to make sure that her husband, who has Alzheimer's, was safe at home while she was away. So that prompted a very nice discussion on the pros of the technology. But then at the table I was actually facilitating on, somebody else mentioned, what about if a bad player got wind of the fact that from the data that he was alone in the house? So we had a nice discussion around that, and I think it's very important to note that we really want to explore the pros, but also the cons, or the safeguards or guardrails that need to be put in place if we're able to embrace these technologies for all, not just for older people. So we're not promoting any particular technology. We just happen to have an Alexa. It's one that people are familiar with, but I mean, there's lots of other ones on the market, and a lot of they're often used as voice assistants to give information back. But we also have a nice demo where we've hooked it up to a smart plug, and we allow the participants to turn on and off a lamp, for example, using a voice command. So that usually generates a nice bit of interest, and again, a conversation around if that's okay or not okay. Is that maybe provide a security feature for people when they're away, or whatever it might be, but also what happens to that data if we are used to using it and then stop using it, for example? Does that give some information away that we didn't expect it to? Or another one that came up a lot at the last 2 events we were at was the new Meta ring that's in WhatsApp. So lots of people were very concerned that seemed to have appeared in their app, and they couldn't remember signing up to it or having given consent for that to be downloaded automatically. But of course, if we were to read the fine print, and I haven't done that, I'm sure that we'd discover that we'd actually consented to having that downloaded, not it specifically, but updates that could be sent out on WhatsApp. And then the last one is just an example of other things that we're exploring as part of putting together our AI literacy training pack. So one of the research leads in the group has this idea of converting this old radio with its beautiful interface and holding on to part of the wonderful designs that are part of that to reimagine how it would look if the internals of the radio were replaced with AI technology. So I think he's thinking along the lines that the knob, instead of changing the frequency setting, would allow you to go back in time to play music from a certain era or to listen to some media content from a particular point in time. And so we bring out the radio as it is, and we have a postcard session asking people to engage with their ideas of how it could be reimagined using AI technology. And hopefully might have that as part of the demo showcase going forward. It's generating a lot of interest with the demographic that we're working with on the project. And the final slide then, I guess, is a call to participate further, because we're trying to build capacity and to achieve long-term impact for our partners, to include older adults in the process with sharing their lived experiences to make the AI solutions and technologies and policies more inclusive and empowering for all. So the call for you is to sign up to our newsletter to hear about any upcoming activities. As I say, we're running our workshops nationwide. So we have 4 regional co-creation workshops first, then 4 regional citizen think-ins in the autumn. We're concluding our co-creation workshops, should I say, with an event in Galway next week. And then we'll be assessing what we're doing for the citizen think-ins in autumn, and they will happen regionally again. So we'll send out news on that when they're upcoming and we have the dates sorted. And if you have any ideas, we'd love to hear about it. So you can go to our website, and the URL is there, agefriendlyai.ie, or send us an email on our email address, which is agefriendlyai@adaptcentre.ie. It's there on the screen as well, in very small print. I see, but we have a QR code that you can scan. And then we're hoping to co-create our training content, which we imagine will be short video explainers, some of our practical demonstration tools that will be standalone in, for example, library settings or community venues. A set of slides perhaps in the form of slide decks. And we'll touch base with Nala if that's appropriate, to see how we can work together to shape and share our AI literacy training material with this network. And thanks very much for your attention. We have one little slideo.
Yeah,
Emma,
just before we wrap up, we were hoping to ask your opinions in the spirit of the kind of co-creation nature of the project. We were hoping that you might share some thoughts using this Slido. So we have here the same question that Paula mentioned that we had at our launch about any ideas that you might have for making AI more age-friendly, or things that we should be taking into consideration kind of at this co-creation phase. If you wouldn't mind, if you have something to share, joining the Slido using the QR code or going to slido.com and entering the number, and I'll give a minute to do that, and then I can actually pop out to the Slido so to take a look at what's coming in. And we're happy to take questions if anybody has any.
Listen, thanks for that, guys. It's absolutely fascinating. And thanks so much. And I think we'll give it a few minutes and see what people pop into kind of chat. I just had a couple of quick questions and I'll throw it open kind of to the floor as well. And apologies if I missed at the beginning. Paula, what is your, I suppose, target age range when you say age friendly? Have you bounded it? Or because I just even noticed in terms of the pictures, there seems to be quite a spread. And I think it's particularly relevant in this kind of literacy context. People may be aware that the PIAC results that came out there in December 24, because it's the OECD, they're really interested in kind of, I suppose, people of working age. So they cut off at kind of 65, which is a big concern for us in terms of, Ireland has, an older population, an aging population, but it's also, it's really evident from your project, people are hugely engaged in things and they want to learn and, they want to, be engaging in lifelong learning. So anyway, so what is do you have one bounded for the purposes of research?
Well, a great question, Colleen, and we've been asked that several times. We don't have any even definitive answer on it, but I guess the UN says over 50 is older adults was one that I heard, but we've kind of said 60 plus is our target audience. But I just do want to emphasize that when we say age friendly AI, we're not trying to make it friendly. We're trying to have the discussion around what can make it accessible and inclusive. So just to say that, and if we make it accessible and inclusive for one age group, well, it's more accessible and inclusive and universally designed for all.
Yeah.
So,
and just to say that we did ask at that kind of initial workshop that we had before the launch event, we asked what people, how people define that, because there are numerous different kind of brackets or the kind of starting points for the definition of older adult, and there were as many kind of answers as there were people in the room, about how to define it. But like one of the things that came across from the discussions was that that it doesn't really need to have an age boundary on it. It's around things like, ability and, what people, how people want to approach it or who kind of feels that they fit in with it. So no answer, but
no. And I think it's
in our minds.
Yeah, and I think back to, I suppose, the challenges and the possibilities of AI in terms of how, if we think about who was involved in creating it in the first place in terms of that demographic. It's a particular age demographic, it's a particular gender demographic, it's a particular geographical demographic. So I think that being said, we do need to, increase what's kind of going into the design of it to make it more accessible and reflective of who might be using it. But anyway, that's probably a little bit for another day. I'm just kind of curious as well, and I don't know how I'll go with the questions here, and I hope people put some into the chat or raise their hands. Through that kind of co-creation process, which is great to hear. And I didn't really, maybe just trends that were coming out in terms of maybe the opportunities or the challenges people would have, and we see that as well in terms of the confidence, I'm going to break it. But I'm just wondering, if you've been at this for a number of years, are there maybe, if we were to do the discourse analysis of the conversations, maybe those couple dominant themes that are emerging for older people engaging with AI?
Yeah, so interestingly, the kind of the predominant themes that come across the events tend to be quite similar across a lot of them. So trust is one, around kind of the trustworthiness of the technology developers, who's developing the technology, who can I trust them with my information or with my data? So trust is a really big one, and that's kind of across all demographics that we see. Another one is around control, and it's around kind of like, being in control of the you know, my own data or my own information, whether it's health related, finance related, but also being able to control things like Paula mentioned, say that thing on WhatsApp, the Meta AI that is has been kind of foisted on everybody. You know, we have no kind of agency in that. It's the company deciding you're getting it and you can't turn it off. So, and what's the alternative then? You know, you have to decide, do I stop using this technology that I've always been using? Or, you know, it's kind of, so people, what we hear is that people want to be able to control if you can turn things on or turn things off, or who's collecting the data. So those would be two kind of the main ones. And then with the older adults, I suppose particular cases are kind of around kind of concerns would be around kind of finance, and you know, the kind of the rollout of things like, you know, chatbots, and kind of online banking, rather than being able to go into a branch and interact with a person. But then on the other hand, people really see the benefits of, say, the healthcare applications, with AI and the kind of the advances that are being made and potential future advances around health. So those would be a kind of a snapshot. And yeah, we'll hopefully be kind of putting out something after this current phase that we're in, with more.
Well, look forward to hearing it. So there's a lot chatting. We might maybe bring in, you know, Scott, Emer, and Ronan at this point as well. And as I said, once again, and Fergus has said, if you do have any questions,